Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. Get warmed up by singing a little bit to welcome Shabbat. Please join us from your living rooms, from your kitchens, from wherever you may be tonight. Come, let us sing. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat again. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'zamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai u'zamer l'shimcha elyon. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. It's good to give thanks, to give praise, and sing songs to your name, Holy One. It's good to give thanks, to give praise, and sing songs to your name, Holy One. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. Mizmor shir b'yom haShabbat. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat. Come, let us sing, a song of Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Hyatt.
Nice to be here with the two of you. I'm Rabbi Hyatt, Cantor sax, Steve Brodsky. That's Ken Mervine down there on the piano. And we are so happy to be celebrating Shabbat with all of you. For some of you, this Shabbat probably feels no different than it has for weeks because you've been at home. And for some of you, maybe your tushes are really missing these shares, and we're really missing all of your faces. And hopefully this is brief and temporary while we keep each other safe and we can join together again soon. But here's the good news. I don't have to tell you to wear your masks. So you can breathe free at home and do your Shabbat thing as we welcome in Shabbat. I invite you to light candles alongside us as we bring Shabbat in.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life.
Tov lehodot l'Adonai ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
On this, the day of days, my lips shall sing your praise, for I know that you'll always be here surrounding me. Tov lehodot l'Adonai ולזמר לשמך עליון. Tov lehodot l'Adonai ולזמר לשמך עליון.
My spirit takes release. I close my eyes in peace, and from my soul far above springs a song of love.
Tov lehodot l'Adonai ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
I wish you understand the wonders of your hand, for all the blessings that are mine rise from your design.
טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
And so we take a moment to take that big, deep Shabbat breath as we prepare to welcome Shabbat in officially with the words of Lecha Dodi. And we sing these words with such enthusiasm, with tunes that make us a little bit want to dance, because this is a good moment. It's an exciting moment that we've made it to Shabbat.
Lecha Dodi לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה. lecha dodi לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה. lecha dodi לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה. lecha dodi לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה.
שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת גליל.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Likrat Shabbat, Lechu V'nelcha, Ki Mekor Habracha, Merosh Mikadem Nesucha, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshava Techila, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela.
Kiva orach, kumi ori, uri, uri, shir daveri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla.
Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela.
We rise as we are able, as we welcome Shabbat. Bo'i v'shalom atet bala, kam besimcha ubzola tochem unei am segula. Bo'i chala, bo'i chala. Lecha Dodi,
Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela. We remain standing as we are able and join together in our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai.
We read responsively. If you're at home, wherever you are, feel free to read out loud. We got used to this. It feels a little strange, and then it doesn't feel so strange anymore. Let me dance in the sky with prayers and blessings for the ones I love, raising these hopes to the gates of heaven together.
Let me sing among the stars with mystery and magic for the holiness around us, raising these dreams to the gates of redemption.
For there is music in the dawn and blessings at dusk, a radiance of glory carrying our voices beyond the firmament to the one who created all being.
Together, source and shelter,
you set the course of sun and moon, bringing on the evening twilight, calling forth time and space with majesty and wonder.
Blessed are you, soul of the universe, summoning the heavens, declaring the reign of holiness. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
Love abundant, love unstinting, our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift.
Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live.
For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance.
Loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach, preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah.
May learning your Torah light up our eyes. May our hearts embrace your mitzvot.
Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed of our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael ba'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Baruch, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam, Le'olam, Le'olam Va'ed, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. We chant Ve'ahavta together. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha, vedibarta bam, beshivtecha bevetecha, uvlechtecha vaderech, uvshochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam meot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot ben einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liod lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet.
Coming through the sea was only the beginning, the giddiness of walking through walls of living water. But the story doesn't end there. Now it's desert without a map. What if the next 40 years are bone dry and desolate? Maybe it wasn't so bad, that life, numb and familiar. Cucumbers and fish fresh from the Nile, certainty, a fixed path. Now hope unfolds its mighty wings and every step risks failure. When I falter, remind me, I didn't cross the sea alone. Remind me there's a mountain I'm heading toward, a promise that spans lifetimes of becoming. together with you.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. And the river is wide,
And the river is wide,
and the river is deep,
and the river is deep,
and the river is standing between you and me, and freedom, freedom. But we shall overcome one day.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא.
And the river is fierce,
And the river is fierce,
and the river is hate,
and the river is hate,
and the river is standing between us and the gates of freedom, freedom. But we shall overcome one day.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא.
And the river divides,
And the river divides,
and the river forgives,
and the rivers
of all,
and the rivers
of bridge to freedom, freedom. But we shall overcome one freedom, freedom. And we shall overcome one day. Yes, we shall overcome one day.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Hamideinu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu for us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Lechaim.
We cannot merely pray to God to end war. For the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace within ourselves and with our neighbor. Together,
we cannot merely pray to God to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if only we would use them rightly.
we cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if only we would use them wisely.
Together, we cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and give hope if we would only use our power justly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings if we would only use them constructively.
Together, therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of merely pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives may be blessed. We rise as we are able for tefillah.
Adonai, Sfatai, Tivtah. Adonai, Sfatai, Tivtah. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sfatai, Tivtah. Adonai, Sfatai, Tivtah. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Sfatai tiftach Adonai Sfatai tiftach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei hakol, v'zocher chastei avot ve'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer, Moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מימין ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'cha yom yalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
We take a moment now before we move into our silent prayer to say a prayer for healing. And I'll tell you, this week feels a little bit different in our prayer for healing. For so long, even though I think we knew so many who had been impacted, whether in their health or in their emotional health, by this pandemic, it's at this moment that so many that we know are sick. And hopefully may their sickness be quick and may it not be severe. And for those for whom it will be, we pray hard and a lot. Big words, big prayers, big feelings go out to those in our world who are in need tonight, in need physically, in need spiritually, emotionally. We're praying for all of you and for all of them. On this Shabbat, we are praying for Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, Stuart Myers, Jean Silber, Scott Englander, Stacy Hoffman, Phyllis Schulman, James Tepper, Alan Davidson, Donald Gross, Douglas Hamilton, Ira Levine, Richard Seedroff, David Freed, Leslie Rohde, Kara Smoley, Shanti Khazan, Alex Busnovetsky, Lori Goldman, Larry Ambrose, Laura Culver, Carol Weiner, Jared Siegel, Arnold Brodsky, Yana Vishnitsky, Will Jared Skirpan and Liam James Skirpan, Peggy Lehman, Eileen Goldman Auer, Braxton Reimer, Sylvia Scher, Rebecca Zuckerman, Gary Potashnik, Philip Lenoble, and Steve Volin. If you have other names to add to that list, add them. Type them in if you're on Facebook. Whisper them out loud. Yell them. Hold them in your heart. We are praying for each and every one of you, each and every one of them, as we say, Baruch Atah Adonai Makor HaRefuah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the source of all healing.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
And so, with all of that love in our hearts, we take a moment now for silent prayer, for contemplation, and for reflection.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
And with those words of peace in our hearts, we take a moment to talk about our Torah portion this Shabbat, to do a little bit of learning together. And as you may remember, if you were following along in the saga of the Torah, last week we left with a bit of a cliffhanger. If this was, in fact, reality TV, we would have ended last week with 7 of the 10 plagues, knowing that it was going to get worse, but not knowing what was going to happen. And so we ended on the 7th plague, and we pick up this week with Parashat Bo. We are well into the book of Exodus. And in this parsha, here's what we've got. The last 3 plagues we do pick right back up with the 8th plague. We get some locusts, yuck. We get some darkness, yikes. And then the death of the firstborn, which we know is a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching plague to think about. And in between those plagues, sort of sprinkled in amongst the story that we're telling, we get a lot of instructions in this week's Torah portion. And the instructions that we get are, in a lot of ways, how to observe the holiday of Passover. And so it's a really interesting, it's a little bit of like a split narrative that on one hand, what we're doing is talking about the 8th plague, and then the 9th plague, and then the 10th plague, and what happens, and what's Pharaoh doing, and what's Pharaoh saying, and what's God saying to Moses, and what's Moses saying to the people. And then on the other hand, it's like, you're going to remember this day, and you're going to do these things to celebrate and acknowledge this moment way down the line. And so it's a little strange the way we do that. And in fact, 3 times in this Torah portion, we leave the current narrative in order to give instructions, to receive instructions about what we're supposed to do later, after, when we're free, now, in fact. The first time, in chapter 12, the text says, "And when your children ask you, what do you mean by this rite or this thing that we're supposed to do," which is the paschal lamb sacrifice that we're commanded to do on Passover, "you shall say, it is the Passover sacrifice of God, because God passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt when God smote the Egyptians but saved our houses." And then the second time, in the next chapter, Moses says to the people, "Remember this day on which you went free from Egypt, the house of bondage, and how God freed you from it with a mighty hand. No leavened bread shall be eaten." And then the third time, again, just 5 verses later, we're told, "And you shall explain to your child on that day, it is because of what God did for me when I went out of Egypt." So 3 times we come out of our narrative in order to remember that we're supposed to remember this and remember this moment and tell this story. And the sages say, why? Why are we doing this so many times? Why do we have it happen over and over again? What's this about? And some say that actually this is it's like giving a blessing. That if you're told that you're going to tell this to your children, it means you're going to have children, that you're going to make it out of Egypt. It's going to be okay. There's going to be someone to whom to tell this story. Good. That's reassuring. Some say that the this day and the that day, hayom hazeh, that really clear, punctual language about the timing of this, that you should remember this moment, is actually a reminder that we're supposed to remember the moment of becoming free, of being taken out of Egypt every day. And I like those. I like both of them. I like both of them right now, and I think there's something even deeper. 3 times before they leave Egypt, God and Moses tell the people that they're going to talk about this moment later, and I think it's on purpose. I have to tell you, when I'm getting ready to write a Devar Torah, what do? I go into my Google Drive and I find all of the things that I've said before, because hopefully I won't repeat them, and I can look and see what I said last year at this time, if it was my night, and I see what I said the year before. And I'm no Rabbi Black with decades of material, but I got a couple now. And so I look back and I see what it is, and I think if in 1,000 years, anthropologists were to line up my sermons and try to deduce what was happening in the world at this moment based on what I've had to say for the last couple of years, I think it would be fascinating. And not only just this year, last year at this time, but I was thinking back because I keep coming back to the same messages and the same things that I'm extracting from Torah. On December 11th of 2021, we talked, if you were with us, and you didn't have to be, here's the Cliff Notes. We talked about how Joseph reinterprets his own past in order to make sense of it. Instead of being mad at his brothers for throwing him in the pit and selling him into slavery, he tells them that it's good. It's a part of God's plan to save the people during the famine. And the upshot of that was that we get to reorganize our past even when it's hard in a way that builds us. And we get to let it help build a future we want. 2 weeks later, on December 24th, in Parashat Shmot, we talked about the burning bush and how when Moses asked God what God's name is, God says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh, I will be what I will be. And we talked about how that teaches us that we can be whoever we want or need to be, and that we are not done writing our stories and figuring out who we want to be in the world. And here we are, 2 weeks later, I can do math, Parashat Bo, and we're talking about why we're telling the story of the Exodus of Egypt before it happens, why we're being told to tell it before it's even done. And so it's no surprise that my immediate response is to think that the reason that we're telling ourselves to tell the story is to empower us, to realize that we can help create the ending of the story that we want. Perhaps the whole reason that the Israelites were even willing or brave enough to walk into the sea before it split, how terrifying that moment must have been with the water before them and the Egyptians behind them, and they just walked in. Maybe it's because they'd already committed to telling the story when they got to the other side. That this moment is what got them through that moment, that they knew they had to sit around a table and tell their children that they made it. And so with this sort of line of these very empowering sermons I've been giving, why am I talking so much about ownership and future and control and strength? And if we're being honest, it's because I'm trying so hard to dig out of this pit. The sanctuary's empty again. This is hard. So I looked even further back, anthropologically speaking, and it turns out that a year ago today I gave another sermon, 2 days after the insurrection at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And here's how it started. Word for word, I wrote, I have to tell you, this is not the first or second or maybe even the 10th time in the last year that I have sat here and thought, why is it not Rabbi Black's turn to give the sermon? And then I asked, what am I supposed to talk about? When do we get to stop using the word unprecedented? I said we can't take any more. We're not made for this much hate and destruction, this much division and discrimination, hardship and tragedy. We're not made for isolation. We're not made for this kind of year. If only I knew how many more times I would think that. Because I gave that sermon in January of 2021, and then we lived through the rest of 2021, and our year has started again with tragedy and isolation, with fires burning, just in time for us all to retreat back into our own hidey holes, alone. We've been speaking, and you've been listening to, over and over and over again, these Devar Torahs and sermons that ask us to be better, to try harder, to find more and be more in this time, to help and care and reach out and stay safe, because we're all trying to dig out of these pits of isolation and despair, to find the light and the fresh air and the safety and the peace. We've been trying for 2 years now. I don't have any more advice or positivity, at least not this week, about what the heck we're supposed to do. Is starting to feel a little bit forced. But what I do know definitively at this moment is that for better or worse, the story is not over. Obviously, this is not how it ends. We thought maybe that we would be vaccinated and boosted and go back to the rest of life, but here we are masked and learning the Greek alphabet better than a bunch of frat boys, and so we know this is not the end. And so at this moment, we are just like those ancestors in Egypt. We are still slaves. We're still in Egypt. It is still narrow. We are not free yet. It's not over, and we don't have any idea how it's actually going to end. So let's take our cue from the Parsha and just start talking about it, and start dreaming about it, and telling each other and imagining what it will be like to sit around the table decades from now and tell our children how we emerged from this darkness, because we will. We know we will. It will happen someday. That's what we sing about when we say we will overcome someday. We know we're going to get there. We don't know when. We don't know how hard it's going to be. We don't know at what cost. But we learn from this parsha that before the plagues are even over, we begin to extract the lessons of this time, to prepare ourselves, to teach them to our children, to ask them to do better than us when they face dark holes and hard times. If we wait until we're out, we might forget just how much this hurts and how much this pain matters. I think in 1,000 years, when anthropologists look back on the annals of history of Temple Emanuel in Denver during the pandemic, and they watch all of our Facebook Live videos, and then they read our sermons, I'm so sorry to those anthropologists 1,000 years from now, they're going to wonder what the heck was going on in the world. They're going to wonder why nobody seemed to be in charge of fixing it. And they're going to see that we took care of each other, that we loved each other, that we did not give up, that we did hard things for each other, and that we, much like our ancestors who were running, terrified for their lives out of Egypt toward the wilderness, that we did not quit when things got hard. That we, in fact, though we don't feel like it now, that we were resilient. Over and over and over, Pharaoh changed his mind about our freedom. And over and over and over, our disappointment in the hardness of his heart almost broke us. We get that. we're there, talking to an empty room. We think that we're almost at the other side, and then we're not. But we will be. We talk about the story before it's over because it isn't over. So we're not done yet. Not done supporting and loving and helping and reaching out and caring and motivating and holding and listening and lifting and persevering. We're not done. We might want to be, but we're not. So we just keep going. Because it matters that we're going to sit around a table and tell our children someday the story of this time when we reach the far shores of this sea and we find freedom. We will. Shabbat Shalom.
Koach, Rabbi Hyatt. We rise as we are able, as we turn and walk to the ark for Aleinu. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, ונור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
And so our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and our neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And so on this Shabbat, we are thinking of those that we have lost in the last week. Barbara, Barbie, Bach, Arlene, Snooky, Schwader, and Gloria Trotsky. We're thinking of those that we've lost in the last 30 days. Eunice Teitel, Beverly Francis, Carmen Lichtenstein, Ellen Fox, Morton Jerome Kraut, Charlie Schneider, Helen Spitzer, Penny Kronfeld, Janice Solomon, and Joe Smirnoff. And we're thinking of all of those in our lives for whom this Shabbat marks the Yortzeit, or the anniversary of their passing. Adolf Axelrod, Ruby S. Baum, David Baum, Fanny Bauman, Paul L. Block, Shirley Bloom, Marcus Bressler, Irving Klar, Susie Cohan, Judith Cohen, H. Stanley Cook, Charlotte Diamond, Harvey Eisen, Benjamin Ellen Bogan, Donald Felsen, Jerry Friedman, Tilly Friedman, Carrie Friedman, Catherine Gale, John Gale, Faye Glick, Miriam Goldberg, Leo Goldblatt, Ruth Golden, Jake Gottfried, Jason Howe, Erica Huss, Edna Jarecki, Max L. Kahn, Albert Kane, Dorothy Katz, Donald Kaufman, Sandra Lackner, Evelyn Lerner, Earl Leeser, Anna Levy, Ruth Mandel, Charles Marcus, Susan Mason, Elias Pelton, Gertrude Pincus, Ira Lewis Quiet, Lewis Robinson, Bessie Rodman, Dorothy Rolnick, Adrian Rosenfelder, Sophie Rosenthal, Ann Samuelson, Jenny Schaefer, Rose Schatz, Charles Shayer, Ann N. Schiffer, Dudley Schoenberg, Ida Schwab, Louis Schwartz, Saul Z. Schwartz, Sarah Siegel, Helena Silvers, Larry Sloan, Lena Snyder, Hattie Solomon, Milton Solomon, Simon Soltanovich, Jacob L. Stern, Herman H. Stone, Ben L. Stone, Samuel Strauss, Loretta Tarkoff, Martin Trotsky, Faye D. Walker, Julius Walbrun, Augusta F. Weinberg, and Faye Weinberg. We add 11 more names tonight from the city of Kolin who perished in the Holocaust, and we end the alphabet tonight and start over in the recitation of these names next week. Dr. Pavel Vaiskosil, Masa Wagnerova Davidova, Arnold Weinberger, Rudolf Weinberger, Ermina Weinerova, Rudolf Weisberger, Amelie Weiss-Danova, Dr. Willem Weiss, Julius Weiss, Karl Weiss, and Augusta Zaislova. And if there are others for whom you are saying Kaddish on this Shabbat, I invite you to share their names. Share them out loud, share them in your heart, type them in, but say them, because we don't get to say their names as much anymore. And so with that, even in your own spaces, I invite you, if you are in the first 30 days of mourning, to rise as you are able. And if you're in the first year of mourning the loss of a loved one, I invite you to rise as you can. And if you are marking a yahrzeit on this Shabbat, I invite you to rise as you are able. And now we all stand with you. We stand in solidarity with you. And even though we can't stand in this sanctuary with you, we are holding you as we join it together in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgarash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ule'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say together, Amen.
Oh, say shalom, shalom b'roma, huya say shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. So just a few announcements before we conclude our service this evening. As you all know from our service tonight, we at Temple Emanuel will be shifting to virtual programs, meetings, events, and classes for the entire month of January. That means that any activity that you will be engaging with through Temple will be virtual. Please stay tuned to our e-notes, and our website so that you can know how to register to get the information that you will need in order to be able to participate. Our one exception is our Rabbi Stephen Foster Early Learning Center, which will remain in person as usual for this month. The other big piece of news that comes along with that is that we sent out this morning is that we have decided, given the state of the world and particularly our numbers in Denver and Colorado, that it is prudent and necessary to postpone our annual fundraiser this year, honoring Rabbi Stephen Foster and Senator Joyce Foster for their 50-plus years of service and inspiration to our community. We will be postponing that annual fundraising concert, originally scheduled for the first Saturday night in February, to June 18th, 2022. And we are very excited to be able to announce that Super Diamond will indeed be joining us on that evening, as promised. So for those of you who were just counting the days until you could see the premier Neil Diamond tribute band. I said it right?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Then that is going to be our date, June 18th, 2022. I also hear that there may be some important birthdays that happen right around that date. And as a result, perhaps there will be some birthday cake involved in the new fundraiser date. And just another big thank you to our fundraiser co-chairs who have already worked so hard in order to bring about this amazing experience. Thank you, and thank you to all of you who have already donated so far so that this fundraiser is really on track to be one of our most successful fundraisers yet. We can't wait to celebrate appropriately in person with a ginormous party, God willing, with the entire Foster family, and we look forward to having many of you there as well. And so with that, we are going to make Kiddush, because what better way to celebrate than a l'chaim? So here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, Zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Oh, that's always what you want to see when you open the salad. And we make Mosi. I lost everybody. Where did everybody go?
We're here.
And here we go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
As we get ready to conclude our service this evening, just a reminder that Shabbat does continue tomorrow morning at 9:30, as usual on Zoom and on Facebook and on our website with Torah study. I will be teaching, and then at 11 o'clock we will be doing our community service virtual from our chapel. Rabbi Hyatt and I will be officiating that service, so join us. Come pray just a little bit more. Steve, how are we ending our service tonight?
We're going to end our service tonight with a prayer for peace. And if you look at the slide, you will also see that there is finally snow in the slides, because there is finally snow on the ground here in Denver, and much, much snow falling in the mountains. And we're happy about that. But more importantly, we ask God, who makes peace way up high in the heavens, to please, please, please send some peace down here for us, for all the people of Israel, and for everyone who lives on the earth. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Oseh shalom, Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. Yalai lai 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 lai, yalai lai lai lai, yalai lai 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 lai lai, yalai lai 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 lai, yalai lai 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 lai. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru,
Yehi ratzon milfanecha, may it be your will, God, that we start talking, that we start thinking, that we start dreaming about what we're gonna say when we look back on this moment. What will we say when we tell our children who we were and how we were when this got hard and then harder and then impossible? And as we think about it, as we think about the story that we're going to tell, as we make it real, we ask your blessing, God. Please help us make peace while we're doing it. Tatzidenu l'shalom, help our steps. Every step we take toward that sea, let it be a step that is made for peace. Tadrichenu l'shalom, may our paths that we walk be paths that lead us toward peace. May all say together, Amen. Shabbat shalom.